Welcome back, and joining us now at the top of this second hour is my friend David Morgan of the Morgan Report. You've heard his commercials. Now you're hearing from David, as you always do at this time of week. And Jay, David, I was getting ready to tell you I had Jay Taylor on just prior to you. Did you have a good Thanksgiving, David?
Certainly did. Thank you.
And David, Jay and I were talking about the manipulation of the gold market. We're looking at silver and gold. They're down again today. The stock market is essentially flat. The 10-year, we're almost near 2.8%. You and I and many others think that we're in an environment that should see gold and silver rally, and yet it is not. What do you think?
Well, we talk about this almost every show, but it does bear repeating. We always get new listeners. The fundamentals have never been stronger. The global economy is in very interesting times. The reserve currency is being shunned. The U.S. dollar is being shunned by the other powers. There's really two axes of power in the banking system. And you could make arguments there's more. You could go into the Vatican and all kinds of areas. But it breaks down, in my view, and it's a very studied view, into two. You've got what I call the Anglo-American axis, which is the London-New York banking consortium that's basically ruled banking-wise for a very, very long time, meaning in recent times. And then you have the Asian faction, you could call it something else, which is basically the BRICS, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Now, that faction is getting stronger and stronger, and that faction is where all the gold is going. All the physical gold is moving in the east into Russia, China, India, and the West that has played all these games with their gold, meaning the great Anglo-American empire, the London gold pool at all, and onward from that point in time, where they've used gold as kind of a political tool to suppress the price or keep it under management, to keep the paper paradigm in place. And the paradigm is getting weaker and weaker, which requires more and more force, not only more and more force of fiat money, meaning the QE 1, 2, 3 ad infinitum, but more importantly, the gun diplomacy, where if you want to go on a gold standard, you want to take some other currency or gold in exchange for oil, then you're going to pay a price. And so it's getting more and more interesting as we speak, Alan. So all the elements there are completely and totally favorable to gold, yet at the same time, as you point out, the price is off. So what you need to do, I think, is, again, take a deep breath, take a look, and understand the fundamentals. Technically, it's weak. All these guys on the floor of the exchange, all these off-floor traders, all these big banks, they use the charts. They use everything at their disposal. They use the propaganda press, and do what they do on these paper markets. But we have to remember that the outflow of physical gold is going from west to east. It's been doing that for a very long time. And I've said, and I probably don't emphasize it enough, but I've always felt and said and stated in the public domain and privately as well, that the game really doesn't end until we get down to the bottom of the barrel, meaning that the physical market has to take control. The only way that's going to take control for very long, in my view, is to basically run out of gold in a major exchange, or there's some massive delivery that isn't met, or something is upset. And, we've had that already, meaning Germany asked for its gold back. And, the Fed says, yeah, fine, no problem, 7 years from now. So even when it comes right in your face, and even the mainstream media propaganda press can't ignore it, they did report it, still it seems as if it doesn't have the impact that perhaps myself would think it would. When if you've got gold at the Federal Reserve Bank in New York and you want it back, what's the issue? Why do I have to wait 7 years to get it back? Nonetheless, the price is being moved down, managed down, whatever you want to call it. But that doesn't mean it's a bad investment. In fact, it's probably been a better time to buy it than ever.
That story, I don't recall it ever even making its way into the American media. I first started reading about it in Der Spiegel. The Financial Times had it. The Daily Telegraph in the UK ran it. But I cannot remember reading a single news story here in our own country about Germany. And I think it was also, was it Mexico or Venezuela? There was a second country that surfaced wanting its gold back, and they were told, back of the line.
Yeah, well, you may be right. I don't read very much the mainstream press. I read a couple. You almost have to, like the journal IBD and Barron's, and I do that at a very cursory level. And I get a couple other financial, but I just kind of glance through them because I know how biased they are. But I try to look at everything, and no one can, of course. But you're probably right. I mean, I may have misspoke that, Alan. Most of my news comes off the Internet. I usually use 3 or 4 different sources out of 3 or 4 different jurisdictions because it's important to not get, slanted news, to look at both sides. And, it's very difficult to get really, truthful reporting in almost any area of life these days.
Well, in addition to the Fed clearly not having the gold to repay Germany, that story, like I said, never got any traction. The other one that shocks me is China's announcement, a couple of weeks ago, that they were going to unwind their dollar-denominated assets off their balance sheet. You would think that would have made a big splash here, and we didn't get it.
Exactly, and I think it's by design. In fact, we really know it's by design. If you're studied at all in these things, the media is owned pretty much by the banking consortium, the power elites, however you want to refer to them, and so they have basically the ability to dictate what gets newsworthy and what isn't newsworthy. I mean, the newsworthy items are out there because, we all care about what the Kardashians are doing or what, some singer's doing or what she's wearing or what show she's on or some nonsense. And this is just a big distraction, and a lot of it, I think, is deliberate. I mean, that's part of the idea is that you divide and conquer. I mean, you give people's attention to something that's rather meaningless in the greater scheme of things, and you are basically taking away not only their hard-fought freedoms, but you're also distracting them. And a lot of people are, aware that something's drastically wrong, and they crave the entertainment to kind of put it out of their mind. And this is something that took place in the 30s during the Great Depression, and people, the movie theaters did a booming business because it was a way to escape the reality of what the drudgery of their daily lives. And we're in a similar situation. I mean, look at the unemployment. Look at what's going on in the States and outside of the States as far as the global, economic system. It really is not healthy. It's not vibrant. There isn't a lot of, really good trade back and forth. Of course, it continues. I mean, I don't want to mischaracterize it, but there's so much infighting and control and positioning for power that, and the military use. I mean, no one really talks about the war going on constantly. And a lot of these are for geopolitical reasons. I mean, a lot of it has to do with energy and what pipeline's going to be built. And, I mean, it goes on and on and on. I mean, the deeper down the rabbit hole you go, the more, discouraged you could become if you let yourself be so. But, again, my perspective is, and maybe irrational, that I'm a big believer in the underdog, the little guy. I don't think this thing is going to continue in the global manner. I think it's going to break apart. I think it's going to go back to smaller communities, but maybe that's wishful thinking, maybe not. Time will tell.
We're speaking. Oh wow, we're speaking with David Morgan. David has the Morgan Report. You can go to it on the internet. He's got a free subscription, and then depending on your level of interest in the silver market, you can keep ratcheting up to become an expert. David, I appreciate it, guy.
Thanks so much.